Hello and welcome back to the Puncher's Chance podcast, and welcome to the first of two preview shows this week where we'll be talking about Shakur Stevenson versus Teofimo Lopez. An absolute belter of a card, so stick around, subscribe or follow us on Spotify if you haven't already. Straight into the action. Shakur versus Teo, super lightweight for the title. What do we make of it?
I'm really looking forward to this fight. It's not until I actually looked at the full card I realised how good a card it actually is. It's almost worth staying up. It's going to be an early morning one for us in the UK, so I think it'd be worth staying up to watch this one.
I think, like Ben touched on, these sort of ring cards, I remember last year in the summer when they were over in the Bronx in that tennis stadium when Shakur Stevenson took on, Zepeda then, and that fight card was really good. And then this one has sort of been one where you're looking at the main event and you're like, wow, this is a great fight. But then the undercard, you're kind of shocked because you're thinking, hang on a minute, that's a good fight. This is a good fight. And we're going to touch upon it later in the episode. But going back to the main event, I think it's a very intriguing one because in a way, they're two very different fighters. And how that sort of plays out in a fight, I don't really know. Because I think, Shakur Stevenson is your favourite fighter to watch. I'm sure if you're on a long flight and you need to fall asleep, just chuck a Shakur Stevenson De Los Santos fight on and you'll be off to sleep. But for Teofimo Lopez, he's all action. And it'll be interesting to see, the sort of reactions that both have in this fight. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think first of all, this can't go worse than the Ring Magazine's debut in New York as an evening of boxing. But moreover, I think for me, when you look back at Teofimo Lopez's performances, the one that obviously sticks out is Lomachenko. That win over Lomachenko, who is, he's a great of our generation. And I think Teofimo Lopez works best when he's almost the disruptor, when it's, I'm going to stop you doing your stuff. And he almost plays up well to that. When you look at obviously the Kambosos Jr. loss, not a great loss on his record, but that was a fight that he probably should have been winning on paper. So from that point of view, I think, Teofimo Lopez absolutely has the minerals to make this an awkward night for Shakur Stevenson. Does he have enough to beat Shakur Stevenson? On paper, it's hard to say. The guy's beaten everyone who's put in front of him. He's done so pretty comfortably. He's a multiple weight champion. And the thing that's great about him, like you kind of mentioned, he's got the ability, to put people to sleep. Just unfortunately not in the ring. It's the people sat at home.
I think, you touched on it. The George Kambosos Jr. fight, the first time around, was the sort of fight where, like you said, you expected Teofimo Lopez to get through. I think he got the game plan completely wrong that night. He got knocked down. His father's in his corner telling him that it was a flash knockdown. When you watched the replays back, it was a knockdown and he was hurt from it. And it was just a night to forget for him. But I feel like with Teofimo Lopez, there is flaws to his game. As much as he's a very good fighter, technical fighter, the way, he approaches fights with the wide stance, we saw it in the Kambosos fight where you don't even have to connect fully with a big right hand. You can just jab and he can be on the canvas. So that's going to be playing in the fact that the sort of approach of, does he keep his guard up high? Or does he stick with his natural sort of attack where he keeps him down low and just comes in and does his work there? But I feel like it's a competitive fight for however long it lasts because Shakur Stevenson is, when you look at generational talents now in America from sort of Mayweather, I think a lot of people are making the comparisons from Floyd to Shakur, possibly.
I think as well, it's the fact that in both senses, people didn't really like either of them.
True.
It's that kind of, you love to hate them, and then once they're gone,
people love watching Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
People have a different viewpoint on watching Shakur Stevenson.
I think for me, I don't know what you guys think about this. I was just kind of looking back through some of Shakur's fights recently. This probably is the biggest test to date, particularly up at super lightweight now.
Exactly.
Which, he's not necessarily committing to saying he's campaigning at. He says if he can't find a big fight at that weight, he's more than happy to move back down. But he won't have huge amounts of power. He doesn't have huge amounts of power anyway. At 130. So at 135, you're really stepping up and saying, how much can he stop Teofimo Lopez? And I think pedigree-wise, Teofimo Lopez is probably the toughest test to date. So from that point of view, could this be the best sort of litmus test of just how good Shakur Stevenson really is?
I think this is definitely this will be proof, I think, of how good Shakur Stevenson is as a fighter. I think the main sort of confidence that Teofimo Lopez can take is his first fight, the super lightweight. So you don't know how he's going to adapt to that weight, especially being a fighter that doesn't, like you said, have a lot of power with the issues he has with his hands as well. But I can see his technical skill still being very much a problem for Teofimo Lopez. But then again, if Lopez can keep that consistent pressure on, we've seen there with fights recently, well, a fight we'll talk about in a bit with Andy Cruz, it was more of a technical fighter against someone who was going to look to bring that pressure. And when you're in a fight like that sometimes, especially when you're going up against someone who is naturally a bigger fighter, when they are trying to consistently put that pressure on you and you can't gain their respect because you haven't got enough power to keep them off, then sometimes it can turn into a bit more of a dog fight than what you would want it to be. And I think that is where Shakur Stevenson could have real issues on this weekend. And again, with Teofimo Lopez or the Kambosos Jr. loss, when you look at some of the biggest fights he's had in his career so far, when you look at the Lomachenko fight, you look at Josh Taylor, you look at who was the last fight he had, Barbosa Jr., someone who was unbeaten. When the stakes are high, he does really perform quite well and he does turn up. So I think he's got the capabilities to definitely, I don't know if it'd be so much of an upset, but I think he is coming in to most people maybe the underdog in this fight because of how highly respected Shakur Stevenson is in terms of his talent. But I'm expecting it to be a really good, close fight. But it has also got the potential, I think, for Shakur Stevenson to show how good a fighter he is. If he can make this look really comfortable, his first fight, the super lightweight, and win quite comfortably on scorecards, it shows how the level he is at the moment.
I think that's a good point there. How much can Shakur Stevenson frustrate Teofimo Lopez in this fight? And I feel like for large parts of it, if Teofimo Lopez doesn't get off to a good start and he allows Shakur Stevenson to go through those gears, it's going to be a very, very long night for him.
I disagree to a point because I think Teofimo Lopez will know
what to get off.
No, I think he'll know that what he knows what Shakur Stevenson's going to do in this fight, right? He knows what's going to be in front of him. It's not a matter of what, it's a matter of if he can combat it. And we saw with Muratalla cut off that ring unbelievably well. And Andy Cruz's biggest downfall, I think, was the fact going into those championship rounds, he wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
We know that Shakur Stevenson will be good enough into those championship rounds. So if Teofimo Lopez is going to win this fight by whatever means, he has to be patient. He has to be consistent. He has to be cutting off that ring as best as possible, be persistent. And then when that one moment comes up where you can land and, put yourself into the fight, land, then go again. And across the fight, hope to build yourself into it because you're not going to outbox him for 12 rounds.
But it'd be interesting to see though, wouldn't it? If he gets to the 8th round and it's not going his way, how does he react to that where he knows Do you think it will though? Or do you think it could?
I don't see a world where it can go Teofimo Lopez's way through 8.
No, Shakur Stevenson I'm talking about now. It's all Shakur Stevenson for 8 rounds.
Yeah, but I don't see a world where that isn't the case unless Teofimo Lopez lands one brilliant shot. So I think...
But how does he react to that though? That's going to be interesting for Lopez where, it must be mentally draining knowing you're coming out round after round after round, knowing
unless that's what you've prepared for mentally.
True.
I think this is what I think Ben was alluding to slightly. He does best when he's got a game plan in his head of this is what I need to do for 12 rounds to nullify this guy. So he'll go into this, you imagine, thinking, I know Shakur Stevenson's going to be on the back foot. I know he's going to be slick. He's going to box. I know that I just need to keep coming, keep asking questions. And then when you get into those championship rounds, then you start to see if he can provide answers for them. And if he does, fair play, game's a game. Shakur Stevenson's very, very good. But if not, that's your chance to get to him. I don't think you do it in 8.
Do you think there's going to have to be an element of risk taken from Lopez, especially in the later rounds? I think he's going to come in, like you said, with maybe he might not say it openly, but he's not going to expect to pick this up on a decision. Or he'd have to probably put in the best performance of his career to take a decision against Shakur Stevenson. So is it going to be an element of try to wear him down and then in the later rounds hope that you've got more than him in the gas tank to take him out?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I just feel like Shakur Stevenson, like we touched on, I think Saturday night he can show how good he is. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if I don't want to say my prediction, but if it goes the distance and we get to the 12th round, I wouldn't be shocked after that 12th round that the ring announcer, if it's Michael Buffer, and he comes out and says 120, 108. I wouldn't be shocked at all if it's a 12-0 whitewash.
Do you think there's also a possibility with Lopez, though, because he's quite a confident character and has almost got that cockiness to him that he'll believe in his own head that he's better than Shakur Stevenson, so can outbox him?
Maybe, yeah. Boxer's arrogance, ain't it? So you've got to have that.
To be fair, he has shown on a number of occasions he is better than some very, very good fighters. I like you, and we're kind of talking this as in a world where how we think Teofimo Lopez could win this fight. I don't think Teofimo Lopez will win this fight. If I'm speaking with my head, I'm saying Shakur Stevenson wins this fight. Maybe not quite as comfortably as you're saying, but pretty comfortably. But he does have that chance.
I just go back to that Cepeda win, and I feel like that was a kind of big statement by Shakur Stevenson, where a lot of people thought Cepeda would bring out a different side of Shakur that night in New York. And like we said, he showed that he's in a different bracket, different level. And I feel like for Teofimo Lopez, it's just how much, like you said, patience is the word for him on Saturday night. He has to be patient because I don't think he outboxes him. I think the only way Teofimo Lopez gets the win is by taking punishment, taking some early pressure, hoping, and I don't see this happening, hoping that Shakur Stevenson tired and then just goes for it then in the last couple of rounds. Because
could the weight factor be an issue?
That's the other concern.
Because you talk about someone like Cepeda, who was obviously very much a come forward and sit on your chest type of fighter, but he was at lightweight, whereas it's at super lightweight. Could Teofimo Lopez be able to take a lot more punishment and keep walking forward and not respect that power? And then what issues does Shakur Stevenson have keeping him off?
I do think the reason Shakur and his team are probably happy coming up to wait for this fight is his style. His style involves him avoiding getting hit anyway. So and it doesn't really involve, stopping the other person coming forward. He almost uses forward momentum against people to get out of the way and circle back round. And if you let him do that too easily, we see something like the Edwin De Los Santos fight, which is boring, where the guy got absolutely nowhere near him. If it's a fight like Josh Padley or like Cepeda, where you get a little bit closer, but not close enough or not well enough, you see him just box round you. So I really don't think the weight will make too much of a difference, because he's not going to, in no fight has he ever tried to stamp his authority with a jab and keep a man back. It's using that forward momentum to do your work and get round. He fights so well on the back foot, doesn't he?
Yeah, and the speed as well of getting in and out is one of the best.
He's a top fighter. We'll get on to We'll get on to some predictions and maybe some positioning of Shakur Stevenson talk later on. But this is a belting card, as we kind of suggested. You've got Carlos Adames versus Amo Williams. Adames obviously coming off of what we can probably realistically call a win off against Hamza Shiraz. And Amo Williams, who fell short against Hamza Shiraz
just about
a little while ago, and then has sort of been building himself back up since. So
it's a dangerous fight, mind. For Amo. I feel like, especially after that fight on the 5v5 against Hamza Shiraz, where when you look back on that sort of build up to that fight, and loads of people were calling it like a 50-50, and Hamza Shiraz that night showed his levels to the game. I look at Carlos Adames and you'd say, it's quite funny, innit? It was a draw, but when you watch it back, if you watch it back, you deep down you know that Hamza Shiraz was rather fortunate that night.
Live, we knew it.
Oh, exactly.
He was
but even watching it back, you were thinking, is even wider than I thought when. But no, I think it's a good fight. I think it's a decent card altogether. But I'm concerned for Williams in this fight, because he's had, how many fights has he had since the Shiraz lost?
Three, I think.
2 or 3, yeah. So, and he's coming straight back in against Adames, who is a pretty decent operator at his level. So, it's as much as I think the main event is kind of one-sided, I'm going down the narrative. I feel like this is the sort of fight on the undercard that this could come back next week and bite me. That is an easy call, maybe.
Do you think this is easy? I think Amo Williams is a world level fighter without being a world championship level fighter, whereas Carlos Adames is very much a world championship level fighter. That being said, I think Amo Williams he's good enough to ask questions. I think Hamza Shiraz at his best beats Carlos Adames, but he was so far off it.
Even after the Belanga performance now as well.
No, I said Hamza Shiraz beats Adames
Easily or?
not easily, but at his best,
he
was also beat Carlos Adames. He was so far off it on that night against Adames.
Yeah, didn't he?
He didn't use the backhand. He didn't make use of his jab at all, which has been such a weapon. Despite being the rangier fighter, he couldn't find the range. And I think a lot of that you can give credit to Adames for. But I think on a better night, I think Shiraz can easily win that fight.
That was also a middleweight as well, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Whereas Hamza Shiraz gone to super middle now, hasn't he?
He has, now. But he was campaigning at that weight his whole career. And I don't know, it's an interesting one, this. I think it's possibly slightly closer than you perhaps are giving Amo Williams credit for, but I do agree that
Amo Williams is a really good fighter, but Carlos Adames, he's one of those very difficult ones because he's such a workhorse. It's so hard. You've really got to be at the top of your game, I think, to get anything against him, as seen with the Shiraz fight. If you're not at 100%, then he's got the capabilities to run away with a fight, I think, just because of his consistent output. And
he's pretty slick as well.
Yeah.
And if he knows you're there for the taking, he's just going to grow in confidence. And as the rounds go down, he's just going to be coming forward, pressurising you. And it'll be interesting to see how Williams responds to that. But I feel like it's probably going to be a very long night for him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Keyshawn Davis, Jermaine Ortiz.
Do you know at the start where we couldn't believe how much depth this card had? I didn't even know Keyshawn Davis was fighting on this card. It's mental.
Well, he's kind of made a mess for himself, hasn't he? He had the world at his feet, really. He had a world title around his waist, which he's now had to give away to Abdullah Mason. He had a fight against Edwin Dos Santos, which you'd call him a comfortable favourite for. And then he comes in heavily overweight. He loses his title. And now he's campaigning at super lightweight. Admittedly, he's made that change, but he had the world at his feet, and now he's having to build himself back up. And I suppose the benefit is he didn't lose in that sense in order to do it, but he just made himself look a bit daft, and people got a bit frustrated with that. And I think he is still a proper top world title fighter, and he will pick up a world title at super lightweight. I believe that, but this is a step on the way back.
Yeah. Going back to that sort of when he missed weight, hopefully this week, the sort of press that's out there is going to question him on that, because I feel like something probably happened in the build up to the fight, because like you said, he is a world-class operator. How can someone who's been campaigning at a certain weight miss weight by so much, without trying? We saw it last weekend, didn't we, with one of Eddie Hearn's fighters, the co-main event, and it's unprofessional at the end of the day, and he's at that level, a world level, where you don't expect it, and we see fighters miss weight when it doesn't matter, but when it matters in a big fight, it can pay. And he could count himself lucky, or rather fortunate, that he's been given an opportunity now on Saturday night to return.
Do you think?
I think he's very fortunate to be on a co-main event. I think he's very fortunate, yes, after what happened.
He's a big name, and he will be back fighting world titles, and there are countless promoters out there that would, bust a gut to be the one that's promoting him for one of those world title fights in the future. I think the fact that he made a bit of a mess of that situation, I think he probably expected Edwin Dos Santos to say, do you know what, give me some more money and I'll fight, which a lot of fighters do. Dos Santos didn't say that. And so, it didn't happen.
Can't blame him as well, man, can you?
Oh, no, I don't blame him at all. But I think that's what they thought. I think they knew they weren't going to make weight. So they thought, let's do the classic thing where we just don't try, and then we'll just chuck him some money and try and make the fight happen still. And De Los Santos called his bluff a little bit.
It happened in the fight before as well, wasn't it? Not for Keyshawn Davis, but with Lemos, who was meant to be fighting this weekend. He didn't make weight, but Keyshawn Davis still ended up fighting him and stopped him. But yeah, he's a top talent. Like you said, a lot of promoters are going to want to be working with him.
Who's he with? Is he gold? He's not Golden Boy, is he?
I think he might be a free agent at the moment. I don't know, actually. But obviously this is a ring promoted event, though I think Matt Truman are the lead promoter on it because obviously Shakur Stevenson.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Eddie Hearn being his promoter, Keyshawn Davis?
I think his plan was always to go to super lightweight, but the main frustration, I think, was the fact that he was so almost nonchalant with the fact that he'd missed weight in such a big fight. Like, it was almost as if he was like...
He proper missed it.
It is what it is. Yeah.
It was the sort of miss weight where you can all just sit there and go, yeah, you didn't try.
So it was a Garcia versus Haney levels of arrogance of, no, I'm not making weight and I'm making a point of that.
I think that's the reason as well why we won't see Shakur Stevenson stay at super lightweight, because those two are good friends. I think Shakur Stevenson said this week, or he certainly said in the past, that he would never fight Keyshawn Davis regardless of what happens. So I can see Shakur Stevenson going back down to lightweight after this. And
there's still lots of great fights.
Oh yeah, some brilliant fights.
And even to the point of the Hadi Herrera fight as a mandatory for the WBC, Shakur Stevenson will be rubbing his hands together going, yeah, that's
especially after
as easy a night's work as I can get as a world title defence.
Especially after his last performance as well.
And you've seen Keyshawn Davis celebrate Andy Cruz's loss as well. He was enjoying that last weekend. So it'll be interesting to see whether Andy Cruz looks at that and wants to jump up to super lightweight, or Shakur Stevenson and him as well is another fight. But there's so many different options you could go round there. But yeah, it'd be good to see Keyshawn Davis back this weekend. Hopefully this is the start now of him kicking on and having a good consistent run of fights at the top level.
Yeah, and I think the same can be said for Bruce Shushu Carrington. Obviously, he's the WBC interim. He's looking to pick up the WBC title. He's been given a fight where you would expect him to do so, and then it's kind of, this is the start of the kind of top fights for him. It's an easy get up to the WBC, but then there are going to be fights at featherweight, whether it's Nick Bull or Brandon Figueroa, if he gets through that fight with Nick Bull, obviously a former WBC champion, so there could be some stuff to be made there. It's a good top division.
When you want to win a world title, whenever you want to fight for a world title, you want to sort of have an opponent in front of you that it's a sellable fight and all that, but you're going to get through. It's probably not going to be as tough as other fights potentially down the line for him. And that's exactly what Carrington's got on Saturday night. You touched on Ball and Figueroa. That's an incredible fight in Liverpool next month. But for Carrington, you talk about like golden opportunities. He won the interim last time out, didn't he? And he's coming into this fight high on confidence, fighting for the full world title against an opponent that I think, I'm trying to work out, last for Fulton 24, so that would have been September.
Yeah. It's
perfect for him. It's the perfect opportunity for a fighter. If you dream of fighting for world titles, this is the sort of opponent you would want to fight for. Is it his first world title?
It's to win the WBC, for the first time. So I think, like you said, he's a guy who's lost to Neri, he's lost to Figueroa.
Yeah,
he's a guy that loses, unfortunately. And don't get me wrong, he's a great fighter, I'm sure. But this is a fight you expect him to win and then kick on. And in the featherweight division, it is a really exciting one. Obviously, with Nick Bull, Angelo Leo, now Bruce Carrington joining in on the party you'd imagine, with the title around his waist. Lots of great stuff.
Got Jarrell Miller on this card.
Hey, Harry, would you like to talk about Jarrell Miller? For those of you maybe who be here more recently, because it's been a while since we've had a good dig at Jarrell Miller. He was kind of the first.
He was the one that we had a feud with.
He was the first person we sort of we took heed to with early on in this podcast, and that was for obvious reasons. He's had various issues with drug bans, and there's been some issues at dealerships, lots of legal troubles. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you see the situation, he'd done half sell a fight, and then so somebody will always want to touch him with a barge pole and always bring him in on fight week, and he's up against an American heavyweight of Nigerian heritage initially, I believe. So I think the idea of this is get him a win, have a nice little, chat off with somebody you can give a bit back, and then you bring him back into the world picture as a fight against someone who's expected to lose to him.
Bring him back into the world picture.
Who were they setting him up against, though?
Oh, I honestly thought that the only fight I would have entertained for Miller and would have got excited for to see him in the ring. Well, I could sound like a hypocrite. I said I would want to see Miller in a ring and fighting. Derek Chisora. I thought the build up to that fight,
That's
back
not the
and
right
forth.
It's not happening.
I don't think that's the right name.
I
No,
think
there's one fight that should be happening for Jarrell Miller. That's Anthony Joshua.
Anthony Joshua.
No.
I think he'd be.
That ship
I think
sailed.
he'd be a nice
blew-
fight for Wardley or Atoma. I think both of those would be fun to see. The kind of big, the was it unstoppable force versus immovable object type matchmaking, where you go, this guy doesn't really get stopped. These guys don't really not stop somebody. Let's see which one stays true. So I think there is fights for Jarrell Miller where you see him, and obviously we were meant to see the Fabio Wardley fight, weren't we?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Before. So
What happened in that? It wasn't.
I don't know, but he turned up in the Norwich press.
It's because he was having issues with who was promoting him, I think.
Yeah, and then obviously Ken Justice Hooney, which was very nearly a slippery soap for Wardley, but turned into one of the moments.
The annoying thing about Miller, though, is whenever you watch him, he does entertain you.
Yeah.
In this fights, Andy Ruiz, this fight in LA was a back and forth sort of slugfest in a way, and I thought that night he won. But I wouldn't have said it on the podcast afterwards because obviously I despise the bloke, but I can't, but I think for Miller, it's a sort of fight where he gets through, it should last a couple of rounds. If it lasts more than 5 rounds, it's a bit like, well, you send him in against Moses Atoma now just to see if he's at that level, so blah, blah, blah. But Anthony Joshua against Jarrell Miller, I can't get on board with that.
Really?
I think that ship sailed.
I think
it possibly has.
I think he's blown.
I don't think it's.
I think that's a perfect warm-up fight for Joshua.
It should be.
Now, if there's a fight out there that would get the fire in the belly of Anthony Joshua,
He's from New York, ain't he?
I believe so. Yeah,
Brooklyn, somewhere around there.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't tend to do great research into Jarrell Miller.
Hang on though.
For obvious reasons, we don't.
Let's get it right first.
He is from Brooklyn, New York.
Okay. He had Madison Square Gardens.
Yeah.
Main event spot. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people, especially in the heavyweight division, can say in the modern era that they've main evented at Madison Square Gardens, and he blew it.
Yeah, but he's fighting at Madison Square Garden on the weekend.
But he's not main evented.
Yeah, but he'll be happy enough. He'll be getting paid decent money. Off the back of, I've done this slightly the wrong way around. I had a great segue in my head. But off the back of Shushu Carrington, before we get into the predictions, we've kind of built that as this man's getting a world title. What's next? Which is a little bit, not to the same degree, what we did with Andy Cruz in the last episode.
I was a good job. I went in the podcast.
What went wrong for Andy Cruz, do we think?
Swing to say, because I didn't make my prediction last week. I had Muratalla winning. Did he absolutely? I had points decision as well.
No way you did. I did. No, you didn't.
Did you not see the message?
No.
I sent it on. I must have. No, I'd signal that.
You must have dreamt this on Sunday night after having seen the result and gone, oh yeah, I remember doing that.
Anyway, if you're not sat here on a Monday, pour in the prediction in.
Hang on, but this week counts though now, don't it?
It does, yeah.
So we won't talk about who's already leading that on the table at the moment.
Yeah, games in hand. Rubbish.
Thank you very much. No, listen, I feel like for Andy Cruz to say he perhaps got the game plan wrong is probably a little bit too harsh on him. He came up against a very good Muratalla, and I think Muratalla knew the sort of level that Andy Cruz was. And for someone who is still quite raw to the pro ranks, perhaps it wasn't the right timing to step up and fight for a world title. But I feel like Muratalla showed he was a proper seasoned pro, whereas Andy Ruiz has still got that sort of amateur style. Speaking to Ben before we were filming, and I said that Andy Cruz seemed to be throwing some punches without much force behind him, and he was sort of scoring those. He was just hitting the score, whereas Muratalla was sort of timing his shots, making sure that big power shot was there, and at a time in the fight, apart from when Chris Mannix said 6-7 in one of the rounds, less said about probably that, the better. Andy Cruz's legs buckled late in the fight, and that told me that perhaps he isn't at that world level just yet, where Muratalla was growing in confidence. And as soon as it got to the 10th round, he went, okay, he's close. Perhaps Muratalla is up by 1 or 2. The 11th round they gave to Cruz, and then Muratalla just went, this is my world. I've been at this level before. You haven't experienced anything past the 10th round. I'm going to show you how it's done. And he did. And I thought it was a classic performance by him. And I'm happy he got the decision. And I was quite shocked as well to see sort of the reaction from Andy Cruz at the end of it. I felt like that was sort of a reaction that you see when you go to like a local amateur show and you see like a little kid lose for the first time, or like a teenager. You know,
how often do you go to little kids amateur shows?
My mate fought the other week on one.
Yeah.
That's how. But it's like a kid losing for the first time. He doesn't know how to handle it.
Yeah. No,
Jesus, he's just firing shots at me there.
Hang on, I'm checking. I do agree. Yeah, he was quite sort of
Childish.
over the top.
Yeah.
But I think for me with Andy Cruz, you talked about maybe it wasn't long enough before, or they pushed him too soon. I don't necessarily think that. I think part of the problem would be, he's been a pro for 3 years. He's fought every 6 months or so. He's pretty consistent. Things have gone pretty well, but I don't think they've given him the right kind of tests as he's built up. The fights that he's won across sort of 10 rounds or up have been very, very comfortable. And then the other fights that have been stoppages on lower rounds to that, you really need somebody to test your output over 10 or 12. You really need somebody to test your guile, someone that puts you under the cosh a little bit. So I think at the age of 30, with the amateur pedigree he's had, there's absolutely a world where he could have been fighting for a world title at this stage and winning it. But he just didn't quite have those right tests at the right time.
Yeah, I definitely think that he's world title level.
100%, yeah.
I think maybe just that lack of experience and the fact he come up against Muratalla, who probably put in one of, if not the best performance of his career. And again, it comes to that thing that we said, sometimes when you've got a slick technical boxer who comes up against someone who has got good power punching, has got a good engine and will keep coming at you, if you haven't got the power to keep them off you often enough, if they feel confident enough to keep walking through your shots, not necessarily that he was just walking through shots and firing back, he boxed very well, but if you can't gain that level of respect from your opponent because they don't believe you've got enough power to hurt them, it makes it a really tough night, and then you've got to really perform to pick up a decision, because otherwise it will go the other way.
Yeah, Muratalla sort of suggested, didn't he, that he didn't care for what was coming back at him, so he was able to do what he needed to do.
Do you think that's because Andy Cruz still hasn't got the power as a professional then, maybe?
I think he's shown that he has the power as a professional, Andy Cruz.
It's maybe just the way he boxes, maybe the way he's used
I also
boxing.
think when you looked at the weigh-ins, and I think there was a little bit of sort of ignoring the obvious signs because of the way I thought the fight was going to go. I remember seeing the weigh-in and thinking, like, Muratalla looks huge in comparison. Like, just the frame, like they're similar heights, but there's just the back, everything. He just looked bigger. He looked like a much stronger fighter. So I think there's maybe Andy Cruz isn't the biggest or the strongest at the weight, but I refuse to believe he's not learnt to sit down on a shot a little bit. Or technically, I just think Muratalla cut off that ring very, very well. He didn't really give him time, and it just wasn't enough. And then going into those championship rounds, he just wasn't good enough, Andy Cruz. I think that really let him down. You win 11 and 12, and I know the scorecards were slightly wider than this suggests, but I think if he wins 11 and 12, one of them, the judges
110, was all that about.
You win those last two, and the judges, I think, have a decision to make. Or there is a decision to make about who won the fight, but the problem is he didn't. He fell away. And that is that experience. If you've had somebody that's made it really hard work for 10 rounds, that you may be a better boxer than them, those last two, you need to go, do you know what? Actually, I need to stamp my authority on this fight, and you do it, and then you come off a better fighter because of it. He hasn't really had that to this stage. So like you said, he'll fight for a world title again.
Oh, yeah,
Do you rematch him?
I think especially in a world title fight where you're going up against the champion, you've really got to steal that belt. You can't hope to nick it on a point decision. You've got to really stamp your authority. And we probably didn't give Muratalla enough credit last week, even though
I was watching it and I was going, boys, come on.
even though we did say it was a 50-50 fight, we probably overlooked him slightly, and I think he really showed his quality. And I think a lot of the fighters in that weight class now will probably be having a second think of maybe not necessarily avoid him, but you know how much of a tough fight it is now.
Yeah. I mean, we said it. We spoke about it last time. How many great fights there are at lightweight. So there's more interesting things to be seen there. Shall we jump into
We've been delaying it.
these predictions? Let's
Just remember it counts this week.
It does. So for those who've missed it or new to it, we do the predictions on the Boxing News app. We're not affiliated. We just use it as a means to predict, and we've got a nice little score table going this year, which, as you heard Harry say, he is in front on, but that's only from one other card. So
Points difference, apparently, or alphabetical order.
yeah, it's a long season. You
He's a little Leeds manager.
Probably, yeah. Don't count your chickens, this early on. You've got to stay strong. And so this one, Keyshawn Davis, Jermaine Ortiz, the first one, a super lightweight 10-rounder. I'll start with you, Ben. What's your prediction for this one?
Is this Keyshawn Davis' first fight, the super lightweight?
I think it is. Yes, I believe so.
I'm going to go with Keyshawn Davis by stoppage.
What are you going for, Harry? I thought you said you had yours locked in.
Have.
Why were you taking so long?
I'm just reading the bookies odds, yeah. Keyshawn Davis by a points decision.
Yeah, I think it will be the same. I just don't think he's got the Keyshawn Davis points to.
No, I'm only saying because the last time we did predictions like last year, I still remember it where I went, I agree, and it didn't count for me. So
It wasn't good enough. It wasn't
Just
good enough.
Yeah, try out there.
Bruce Carrington, Carlos Castro has got on this one. It's a featherweight 12-rounder for the WBC title. Harry, who do you see winning it, and by what means?
I'm going to go just to be a little bit different from you two and give you guys an opportunity, to grow in the table. I'll happily go down a few places. I'm fine by that. Bruce Carrington by stoppage.
I'm going Bruce Carrington points decision.
I'm going for the same. He has been stopped his opponent, and Carrington's not shy of power, but I just think nice, steady,
Which we're probably
12-round decision. Carlos Adames, Amo Williams. I'm set myself up to go first for this one. A lot of people on the app have gone for a Adames stoppage, but not me. Points decision for Carlos Adames.
got a long day catching up on Sunday at the moment. Carlos Adames stoppage.
Yeah, I've gone Carlos Adames stoppage as well.
He does have the power to do it.
I think he'll just catch him with a flush shot. I think it'll just be one of those.
You may well be right. And then the main event, Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, super lightweight 12-rounder or the title. This sets you up, Ben, to go first.
Ask me first.
Yeah.
I am going Shakur Stevenson by points decision.
I agree. Because Stevenson by a wide points decision. I think he'll show his class.
And like you suggested, I've gone for a very boring night of boxing because I'm going for a Shakur Stevenson points decision.
Well, we know what you're doing all day Sunday.
Yeah. Napping after falling asleep during watching Shakur Stevenson fight again. No, so we've all gone for that Shakur Stevenson points decision. We talked about Shakur Stevenson at length throughout this podcast. We've talked about his position as not really being a superstar because people don't really like him that much, but he does have that superstar ability. If he gets through this, where is he in the pound for pound picture? Is he, that puts him at what, 4-weight world champion?
I think he's very high up there. The only issue with Shakur Stevenson is the fact that he doesn't entertain enough with his style of fighting. I think that is his only issue, but you can't take away from how good he is technically. And if he goes up another weight class and beats Teofimo Lopez, especially if he makes it look comfortable at another weight class, a higher weight class, then I think you have to give him full respect for that.
Do you put him in the top 5? if he wins on Saturday night, does he get into that 5th spot?
He's probably not
probably does.
far off.
I think he probably does.
I think he does.
I think he cements himself firmly at number 5.
Yeah. He could even push for number 4, maybe,
Yeah, possibly.
in the way of victory.
I also think as well, he's someone similar that we've spoken to like Bam, where he's just lacked the competition or the level of competition to really state his claim. Whereas a win against Teofimo Lopez, that is a win against a world champion. And I say that with emphasis because Teofimo Lopez is an out-and-out world champion.
And some people made the argument that Teofimo Lopez is another sort of pound-for-pound star. So
Yeah, I think that might be, for me, you know, like we've always said, there's kind of levels to world level. And Teofimo Lopez is a very strong world champion, but he's not he doesn't jump up into that kind of multi-weight champion, pound for pound picture for me. But if you beat someone like that at your weight, 4th weight class, then you start to have to go, yeah, he might be that guy.
Yeah, I just think Lopez has to be at his very, very best to pick up a win this weekend, but that could be possible. We could be sat here next week and go, we got this completely wrong, and Lopez really sure.
I can't do what I did this week now, which is a little bit annoying.
And hide behind and pretend you can't do it. Yeah. Not having that. Another thing, quickly, just before we wrap up, that I realised we sort of haven't touched on is Bam Rodriguez has come very close to possibly still up in the air about signing for Zuffa Boxing away from
I think he has re-signed the Matchroom now.
The coach has said he's re-signed.
but based off of a matched offer from Matchroom.
Why would you want... Here's a question for you. Why would you want to go to Zuffa Boxing after watching the first show?
I think partly as well, you know, if Matchroom match your offer simply by the fact that you're not allowed any sponsorships on your fight kit, etc., with Zuffa, then Matchroom's offer is worth more money because there's a continued earning potential. But you know, it shows their intention to kind of disrupt to a degree. I mean, obviously they lost Jaya Pattaya, and I think Eddie Hearn self-admittedly they haven't done well enough for Jaya Pattaya, but also they don't think he. I think Eddie has said they've lost money on every card they've put him on outside of I think the Riyadh season cards probably. So, they lost luck. Losing Bam Rodriguez would be catastrophic.
Who they have for their main eventers in America then? Boots Ennis,
Shakur Stevenson, and that's it.
That's literally 2.
Yeah,
that's not good for anyone.
Yeah, are we still suggesting that Zuffa's not the future? They're just a kind of
I just can't see it.
A strong feeder league,
a disruptor. That's what I call it.
The other thing is, I suppose, the basis of signing Jaya Pattaya and Bam Rodriguez is suggesting that you are open to the idea of using other world titles, which is kind of
you're going to have to
contrary to what they're trying to do. So I don't know. I don't know how much of it is chicken and egg, or if they're just kind of.
Did you like the sort of production for it though? I thought it was good.
It looks good, but he should do. You know, they have that background. You know, there's no reason why someone with the money and the experience that they've got should be able to make a show look good. But
meh.
Yeah,
I think the only way they could pull it off is if they play the very long game of signing up the best talent now. So it's the place that everyone else wants to go in the future. And then once those future stars start coming through, that's when you implement the game plan you want to implement. But I just can't see it working in boxing. Like I said, there's too much competition, too many different organizations that you can fight for. It's completely different to the UFC, and that model's just not going to stick, I don't think.
Yep.
Is Usyk? He was rumored. Is he no longer?
Usyk's looking like he's fighting on IFN, which is the new Ed Pereira, or IVB Boxing, sorry, which is the new Ed Pereira back.
On YouTube, ain't it?
Yeah, they've
There's a lot of news around that as well, on it, that I think that needs some reading into. Maybe we need to do something on that as well, because
quite possibly, yeah.
That's only just looking too clever from what I've seen.
Yeah, there's all sorts going on. But if you guys like the sound of that coming up, then obviously we'll try and fit that in. Otherwise, let us know what you guys think of some of the fights we've talked about, whether it's the previews, reviews, etc. And other than that, we'll catch you later on in the week to talk about some of the British boxing we've got coming up this weekend with some big fights and not so big fights here in Britain. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.
But punches chance. Puncher's Chance podcast.